Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Maverick Mindset Radio Show. I am Adam Williams.
And I'm Ashley Muckenhut.
And this is the radio show for the dreamers and doers. It's for those who are willing to step into the arena.
Some call us the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers.
We don't accept the status quo. We leave the world better than we find it.
We approach each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. We maintain a rational optimism about the future.
This is the Maverick Mindset Radio Show, brought to you by me, Adam Williams. This is it. This is the show I've been waiting for like 8 days.
Your entire life.
That's when I've been preparing my whole life.
Yes.
But waiting for 8 days. I'm really excited today. We have a very special guest joining us remote from Ann Arbor, Michigan. New York Times bestselling author. Mm-hmm. What was the phrase? The Ted Lasso of high school hockey? Was that
Good Morning America said he was the real Ted Lasso.
The real Ted Lasso.
Yep.
In my opinion, the real Mr. Brightside.
Yep.
And an author here to talk about his new book, a New York Times bestseller again, right, John? Mm-hmm. Yep, another New York Times bestseller, The Gales of November, The Untold Story of the Edmund Fitzgerald, came out October 7th, right before the 50th anniversary of, in my opinion, the most significant shipwreck in American history. Mm-hmm. To most people, maybe the second most important. But we've got him here today to talk about the book, which I said we were gonna throw some curveballs at him. But I need him to tell this story. I needed him to join us and share this with our local community and with our broader global listening audience, because this is such a cool story.
I honestly, I feel bad saying it. I did not know it. And I think a lot of people don't know it. We know about the Titanic, right?
Yep.
So this is pretty great because it brought a new insight to something I had no idea.
So here we go.
About. So yeah.
So we got John U. Bacon joining us, not in studio, but live to talk about his brand new book. John, welcome to the show. We're really excited to have you here.
Adam, thank you.
All right. So we need to jump right into this because this needs to be a 9-hour show, but we don't have that long. You've written how many New York Times best-selling books now?
This is now the 6th.
Okay. And most of them have covered topics very near and dear to your heart. A lot of sports.
They all have, I would say.
A lot of Michigan sports, very near and dear to my heart. And we came out a month ago with The Gales of November. So why pick the Edmund Fitzgerald and the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald as the topic for this book?
Well, a few reasons. One, I grew up in Michigan, so a great Laker like you guys in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you're surrounded by it. So that's one thing. Two, I thought I knew a fair amount about it. Turns out I didn't. So 95% of what's in that book I did not know 4 years ago, and I thought I did. And I guess 3, how important the Great Lakes are, how dangerous they are was news to me. How important Great Lakes shipping is. It's an invisible industry, but we rely on it. Whereas everyone sees, as one of my guys said, everyone knows the farmer, the fisherman, the factory worker, and the miner, but no one knows the sailor, and that's where your stuff comes from. So that was news to me. But of course, also the Edmund Fitzgerald itself. Unlike you people, I was alive when it went down in 1975, and I remembered it as a kid. And then, of course, the song comes out. So you always think about that when you're looking at these amazing lakes. I've been in all the lakes. And I felt that what really drove me was the 29 Men. There are a ton of books behind me on my shelves from previous authors, but trying to figure out what happened, how it happened, and so on. And I think we do advance that conversation in new ways. We have some breaking news, I think, in our book.
I think so, yeah. As a person who's watched every documentary on this, there was definitely some new information in here that I really loved. So let's start with the importance of the.
I thought it's the 29 Men that drove me, though.
Okay.
It's finding out who they were, what their lives are like, what their jobs are like, what's life like on deck, what's it like on shore, what their families are like. And that, when we say the untold story, I got to 6 crew members who had never been interviewed before, who'd been on the ship before it went down, obviously, because all 29 men went down with the ship, including 2 guys who'd been on that summer and knew the crew, knew the captain, knew the ship. They provided some good testimony. And I found one guy who's on the Arthur Anderson, probably the last surviving member of the crew from that night, November 10th. They chased the Edmund Fitzgerald that night. He's as close as we can get to an eyewitness account. And then I got to 14 of the 29 families, and that really is the heart and soul of the book. So sorry for that long answer, Adam.
No, that's all right, because
I didn't know any.
That's what made me do it.
The reality of the book is you did a masterful job of telling those stories, and there are 3 in particular that I want to get into. But first, let's lay a little bit of foundation of the importance of the Great Lakes, because that's where you kind of started off in the book, and that's where you started off with this interview. I grew up on Lake Erie. I water skied and boated out there, and there are people in our community who have swam across the lake to Canada because it's only, quote unquote, 20 miles. So give us a little bit of the history there of why this ship existed in the first place.
Well, this is where I'm embarrassed to say how little I knew 4 years ago, because I should have known this, and I thought I did. Excuse me. Excuse me again. Excuse me a third time about that right there.
Strike three.
Good thing we're live.
Yes.
But anyway, I thought I knew them. I knew how big they are, and I've been on all five. And even in Lake Erie, you can't see across in the middle, of course, or across the middle, that is. And it's not because of the mist or the fog. It's because the curvature of the earth. You can't see the other side on these lakes. And in the middle of three of them, Lake Huron, Lake Superior, Lake Michigan, if you're in the middle of the lakes, you can't see either side. It's like being in the ocean. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, that's one thing. I did not know just how large they are. They're as big together as all of New England, from Rhode Island and Connecticut up through Maine, plus the state of New York. That's a crazy amount. Lake Superior is bigger than the island of Ireland. Oh. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Did not know that. Learning so
there
much
you go.
today.
You should be taking notes.
I know.
There will be a
I
quiz.
was surprised to learn that you talked to experienced sailors, including one guy from Buffalo, who did 12 years on the Atlantic and 23 on the Great Lakes. He said they're more dangerous, and it's not even close. And that shocked me. Due to storms that are far away on the ocean, and as they say in the Great Lakes, they're called locally occurring storms. And I asked one of my experts, what does that mean? He goes, it's over your damn head. So, okay, now I got it. Yeah. And salt water also, it squashes down the points of the very sharp waves on the Great Lakes, which are freshwater, of course. It blunts those down at nice smooth tops and spreads them out. So based on the storms mainly, but also the salt water, you get these nice gentle roller coasters on the Atlantic, and you get these mountain tops, these mountain ranges on the Great Lakes that are twice as close together. So on the ocean, they're 10 to 16 seconds apart, and on the Great Lakes, they're 4 to 8 seconds apart. And why that matters is you can get your bow stuck in one 30-foot wave on the Great Lakes, and 700 feet later, where these ships land, 700 feet long back then, you get your your stern stuck in a 30-foot wave at the other end with nothing in the middle. So except for 26,000 tons of taconite. Taconite, for you video watchers, is this stuff right here. Those are little iron pebbles they create, pellets. They pour it on there. It's about the equivalent of 4,200 adult elephants this thing carries. Just a crazy amount. Enough iron to make 7,000 cars per trip. All right, that's how crazy the scale is. So guess what? It sags, then it goes over that wave, and it hogs, then it sags, and it hogs. Well, do that 10,000 times in a day, and take a paper clip 10,000 times, it snaps. That's what happened to the Bradley on this day, by the way, in 1958. It snapped in half on the Great Lakes, and the Morel also in 66. So I was amazed by that, and finally, about shipping. All our stuff comes from these things, and none of us know it. It's invisible. And it turns out shipping is 3 times more efficient than trains and 6 times more efficient than trucks. Not 6% or 60%, but 600% times more efficient. So it's not even close. So whatever you can put on a ship, you do it. So a lot of our resources come from northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That's what? Lumber, grain. This region, by the way, including you guys, is the most fertile area in the world and is the biggest exporter of grain in the world. Germany is second. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. Copper, that's where electricity, of course, is run. The copper rush was 3 times more fruitful than the gold rush, than all of the gold rush. So how about that? It's less glamorous, but a lot more money. Yep. So you got the 49er, the California, San Francisco 49ers. There's no copper team, so I don't know why. But anyway.
Now I have to buy a sports team. It's
there you go. Yeah. You got limestone that turns iron into steel. That gets shipped down. And then finally you got iron. And iron, of course, is our buildings, our houses, our cars. It's all from this area.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you emphasized in the book is Detroit would not exist without these ships. Toledo would not exist. Cleveland would not exist. Pittsburgh would not exist. Like all of our Rust Belt, really like homes would not exist if they were not able to bring the iron ore and then the taconite down to these steel mills to produce this stuff. And I think John does a really good job of emphasizing like the 7,000 cars per load.
That's crazy. I have a question because you were explaining.
See, now you're interested.
Well, yeah. Now
it only took us 10 minutes.
I know. Now,
here we are.
Now I'm going to go down the rabbit hole.
We got her.
Ah.
Yeah, reel it in.
So the ship, and I'm wondering, have they changed this since then? Because you said, the bow of the ship, and I'm assuming because the ship is so long, it's stuck in a 30-foot wave, and then the stern of the ship is stuck in the 30-foot wave this way. Yeah. So have they done anything to ships to support that middle so that it does not end up breaking?
What they've gotten smarter about is forecasting, communications, and common sense, staying out of storms like that.
Yep.
That's what they did. And I'll take it because very few ships have been made since then, by the way.
Oh.
Almost none. So these ships last 70 or 80 years. I was just on the Arthur Anderson. I've got that model around here somewhere. This is the Edmund Fitzgerald model. Sorry, radio listeners. That's great radio, isn't it? Let's do
That's a good reason to subscribe to our YouTube channel, though. Thanks for the plug, John. Mm-hmm.
Let's do card tricks, puppets, all that good stuff.
So I'm assuming back then they entered these storms because there wasn't really a way to understand what they were getting into.
The forecasting was not only was it less technologically sound. I mean, you have more on your phone now than you had in the pilot house 50 years ago. But they're also complacent about it. I mean, even back then, they knew enough to do a better job than they did. They knew enough to communicate it better to these captains who really had only 1/3 of an idea of what they're headed for. If they knew, they probably would have then laid anchor even then. But the biggest thing is back then, they just always went. They just go. Because the companies in Cleveland and Gary, Indiana, they want you to go, so you go. And now, I'm jumping way ahead here, but last year, November 11th, 2024, the day after the 49th anniversary at Whitefish Point, I was there at Whitefish Point. That's where the ship went down 17 miles off the shore. The bell is displayed there. I was there with the families. So I'm taking my picture for the flap of your book. And it's 30, 40 mile per hour winds. That's why I'm looking like this in the photo, and the hair's
I'll hold it up for the listeners to see. There's John.
There you go.
It's on the website, too. Yeah.
That's 34 miles an hour wind on my face. So there you go.
It was like a glamour shot, though, with your hair blowing.
Yeah,
it was lovely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hear that very often.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a first, probably one of many today. We'll see. But it's 30 to 40 mile per hour winds, 10-foot waves, which is bad.
Yeah.
The tourist boats don't go out in that, the ferries and so on. But back then, I mean, they faced 60-foot waves and 100 mile per hour winds the day they went out.
Where were they going? Where were they?
Would you not skip ahead?
I'm so excited. I got to know.
No. Getting into it now.
No, I see. All right. Spoiler alert. We're going to get there. All right. Let's take a slight.
Let me finish that point.
Yeah.
The point of that is, with all the winds, is that every single ship was anchored in Whitefish Bay that day on November 11th, 2024. And I guarantee you, 50 years earlier, none of them would have been. And none of them were.
That's crazy.
So the biggest difference is not technological, sadly. The biggest difference is common sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the ship itself, because when it was launched, it was the largest ship on the Great Lakes. So give us some of the stats on this thing and how it came to be.
Sure. The guy was Edmund Fitzgerald. He was the insurance company CEO of Northwestern Mutual Insurance in Milwaukee. It's got a huge building now and $31 billion annual company. He said he wanted to build the greatest ship the Great Lakes have ever seen, and it was. It was 729 feet, which, consider that, if you put it on its side, that's a 73-story building. That is exactly the height of the Detroit Renaissance Center, if you know what that is, which is the biggest building between Toronto and Chicago. So put that on the side, that's your ship. It was the longest. It was one of the fastest. It had the biggest cargo holds. It set every record in the Great Lakes for the biggest load, the fastest load, the most cargo in a season, a 9-month season. So it was a heavyweight champion. It was a sprinter. It was a workhorse. It was all that. And amazingly, it was also the most luxurious ship on the Great Lakes, passenger or otherwise. That's crazy. They hired J.L. Hudson's, then the biggest department store in the world, in Detroit, a 40-story behemoth, to outfit it with all the best stuff: plush carpeting in the living areas, wood-paneled walls, tiled bathrooms, air conditioning, and TVs back when hotels didn't have any of these things in 1958, and a gigantic stainless steel galley. They had the best food by far in the Great Lakes. These ships are still known for the food. I got on the Arthur Anderson last summer and gained 5 pounds in 5 days. So that's how you do it, people. But this ship really was all that. And you wonder, okay, why? Why do all that? Because you want to attract the best captain from Buffalo, New York, by the way. You want to attract the best crew they did. Out of 300 captains and crews, this was the best. And you're also there to entertain your VIPs. These are the presidents of National Steel and Ford Motor Company. You put them in the 2 staterooms with a beautiful lounge and the glass wall looking at the Great Lakes. And guess what? They're not going to go anywhere else. So this ship never once had to wait for a cargo load.
I get like feeling of like how they advertise like the Titanic. Like I feel like it was at first, and if I'm wrong, like a show thing, right? Like this, like look at this ship that's never been done as beautiful before. Is that?
It actually was. And on the day it launched, on June 7th, 1958, 15,000 people came down to Detroit to watch it get launched. They got more than the Detroit Tigers did that week. So, which might speak more to the Tigers than the ship. But even the Detroit
some
News
things never change.
There you go. Detroit News, Detroit Free Press all said, this is the greatest object ever put into the Great Lakes. And these guys would and the reporters gushed about the hospitality and how much better it was than a cruise ship. And if you're going to the Sioux Locks or Erie, Pennsylvania, or Cleveland or Toledo, the guys in the crew said, make sure you have a haircut because you're getting your photo taken by tourists waiting for you to arrive by the hundreds with their Kodak Instamatics and whatnot. There was the rock star of the Great Lakes before it went down, and I did not know that when I started writing this book.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the story goes when they launched the ship, they pull the little wedges out that are holding it in place, and it flops into the water. And some guy had a heart attack and died because it was such a sight to behold.
Oh,
so
much history behind this.
That's a bad omen, and took Mrs. Fitzgerald 3 whacks with the magnum of champagne to break it. Sailors are very superstitious, and that's bad voodoo.
Oh no!
And I think what's interesting is Edmund Fitzgerald himself was actually alive when they named this after. This wasn't like a memorial thing. This guy was still running Northwestern Mutual, and my understanding was it was his idea to build the boat because it's a great investment for the insurance company that has all of your premiums.
And it was,
but he didn't actually want it named after himself, if I understand correctly. Which
my man Adam has done his homework 5 times over. Yes, he had the second rule: first, greatest ship in the Great Lakes that they've ever seen, accomplished. 2, don't name it after me. He's a very humble guy, apparently.
Yeah.
So they waited until they got him out of the meeting room, the board meeting room, and voted behind his back to name it after him. So his son said that the day it was launched was the greatest day of his life.
Oh.
So 729 feet long. Obviously, must be a very stable ship, right? How wide is this thing?
Adam knows the answer. Crazy, 729 feet long, merely 75 feet wide. That's less than home plate to first base.
I assume that's not good.
No,
that is not good.
That's like a ruler.
No ships are built like this anywhere in the world.
So why
you got to
did
do
they?
3 things. Because A, maximum load, so make it as long as you can.
Okay.
And they're 1 foot short of the limit at the time. 2, wide as you can at 75 feet. They're at the limit because the Sioux Locks. That's the locks in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Man, my voice. Sorry. Sorry about that.
You've been doing a lot of talking, John. We'll forgive
I
you.
have been doing a lot of talking.
Not just today, but for the last 3 months.
Oh, I've been doing about 5 a day, yeah. So Lake Superior is 21 feet higher than Lake Huron. Okay. So for that, they built the Sioux Locks in 1855. They built them again in 1893. Built them again during World War II to make sure the iron gets to the arsenal of democracy to build those B-24 bombers, 1 per hour every hour for 3 straight years. That's Rosie the Riveter, by the way, did all that. Yep, that's her. Willow Run, right near my house here, 20 minutes away. And they still have a Rosie, by the way, who gets dressed up and show the kids how to rivet. It's pretty cool. My son's done that a few times. But anyway, so you got all this going on, but it's the Sioux Locks that is the bottleneck. So on the ocean, the ships are not as long and they're much wider, as you'd expect. But these things are like pencils, basically, floating in the water. And you want to do 3 things, right? Maximum cargo, get through the narrow Sioux Locks, and be safe in a storm. And this one does 2 out of the 3. Yeah. You can't do all 3. So, like I said, you don't want a pencil in the storm, as I say, it can crack between the waves. But also, if you get broadside, and this ship would on the way down, the waves are hitting you on the side, you're rocking back and forth like this as you're trying to go forward. And that's not good either, because you can get pinned down by a wave, you're halfway to capsizing already, And all that's happened to all these ships.
But
and here's
they knew that, right? They knew.
Oh yeah, they knew all that.
It wasn't something that they didn't realize with the ship that narrow and that long that could. But they.
How about this? Actually, from 1875 to 1975, there were 6,000 commercial shipwrecks on the Great Lakes. Oh. That is one per week, every week for a century.
That's awful. That's like.
Except what was the last one? What was the last one?
This one.
Hasn't happened in 50 years. So they learned something.
But, yeah, wow. And we're kind of jumping around, but since the Edmund Fitzgerald went down November 10th, 1975, 50 years and how many days? A few days ago, not one. And it's because of the Fitzgerald, because that's when forecasting, communications, and like I said earlier, common sense all kicked in. But that's 6,000, man. That's one per week, every week for a century. 30,000 crew. That's one per day, every day for a century. So that's how dangerous this whole operation is.
I had no idea.
So one of the questions that I don't know the answer to, it relates to the construction of the ship. So one of the things that they did different on this one, they welded this ship instead of riveting it. So first of all, before I get to my question, can you tell us a little bit about what that meant for the stability and the ship's bent, right? And you've got a story that relates to this. So tell us about it.
And Ashley and Joey are going to hate me for this, but Adam knows his stuff. He's got this thing down backwards and forwards, down to the rivets.
Yeah.
So yes, new technology, basically a new approach, I should say. In 1958, when they launched the ship is in 3 sections, modular sections that were shipped, of course, to Detroit and then fused together. But even in the smaller sections as well as the bigger sections, they swapped out thousands of rivets, only using them when absolutely necessary for welds. And okay, great. They're faster to do. It's cheaper to do, save some money. And it's 1.2 million pounds lighter. And what does that mean? That means you can add 1.2 million more pounds of taconite per shipload every time you go out. You do this 15 times a year. That's 60 million more pounds of iron ore you're carrying that year. This thing's supposed to live 100 years. So that's 6 billion or whatever, if my math's right.
That's a lot of cars.
So, yeah, exactly. It's a lot of cars. So that's why they did it. But Adam's right. The problem with rivets versus welds, Rosie could tell you this, Rosie the riveter, rivets are stronger. They're much stronger. And welds bend a lot more, which is okay to a point. Like skyscrapers, these things are supposed to bend to a point to make sure they don't crack. But this ship, by all accounts, was the bendiest ship on the Great Lakes, and that's going to be a problem.
To the point where, so they had tunnels in the hull, right? So when you're out in these storms, you can't walk on the surface of the ship because you'd get knocked into the water. So they had tunnels on either side that you could go front to back because it's a 5-minute walk to breakfast from one end to the other. But to the point where it flexed so much that you couldn't see the lights at the other end of the tunnel because it flexed so much. I haven't been there, but that's what I'm told. It's here.
You can get in my video, by the way, on Facebook and Twitter. And I've got the tunnel of the Arthur Anderson that was on last summer, a very similar ship. And these things are claustrophobic. They're no wider than that doorway behind me. And it goes 700 feet, like you said, and it's steel on both sides. The outside is the hull, above you is the deck. And Adam got it exactly right. That thing bent so much that the lights would disappear at the end. Gotta get you.
So John, I've read a handful of your books and I ordered the rest of them. One of the themes that
man.
That's
I told you, super fan.
Yeah. I haven't even told you my Michigan story yet, but I'm sure we'll get there. Here's one thing I've noticed. You've written the Edmund Fitzgerald book. You've written 3 or 4 books on Michigan football. You had what I think was like unprecedented access to Bo Schembechler, coach of the football team. You also wrote the book from which you became the Ted Lasso, on high school hockey, which I think is a super interesting story. But here's a trend I've seen in every single book that you've written, and maybe it's just my bias. It's really, you write a lot about leadership. So there's a lot of, obviously you were coaching a high school hockey team, Let Them Lead, great book about America's worst high school hockey team that he turned around, of course. My favorite story with that book is, John mentioned in some interview, like, oh yeah, I just talked to Bo Schembechler and Red Berenson about how to coach this high school hockey team. Bo Schembechler's one of the top 5 most famous college football coaches of all time, and Red Berenson's probably number 1 when it comes to high school hockey. So, he just casually name drops there. But one of the things that really resonated with me in this book is the leadership of Captain McSorley. because you've got these ships on the lakes that everyone knows are wildly dangerous. These guys will get on these ships for 9 months out of the year and be away from their families, yet they fought to get on the Fitzgerald. People took demotions to get on this ship from second engineer to third engineer just to have the opportunity to work on this ship. John, you mentioned that he was widely regarded as the greatest captain on the Great Lakes. Can you give us a little more insight into Captain McSorley and what type of guy and what type of leader he was?
Sure. As usual, Adam's got his stuff down. McSorley became a captain at age 31. He was the youngest captain out of 300 in the Great Lakes. Excuse me. And he was a captain for 32 years. He's 63 years old in 75. So more than half his life, he's been a Great Lakes captain. And for at least a decade, they all said the greatest captain on the Great Lakes. That's how you get this job in the first place. This is the most coveted post there is on the Great Lakes. And I got that from former crew members, and I got that from his rivals on the Arthur Anderson. This guy was the best. He was the best in rough weather, which obviously matters. The best pilot. One of the guys, Craig Sullivan, the cadet in 72 on the ship. He's the one who told me about the tunnel. He's on there with McSorley, and McSorley turns around in the tunnel and says, "This is the limberest ship I've ever been on," which ain't a word, but it is now. But this guy's been on 30 ships. That matters. But anyway, he said, Craig Sullivan said about McSorley, "I saw that man park 729 feet of steel between two other freighters with 5 feet on either side and not touch a damn thing, like he's parallel parking in his Ford pickup truck." He was the best. And what's also really unusual, he was also beloved. These guys back then, kind of like football coaches, teachers, and bosses, you could do a lot of things 50 years ago you can't do now. And the captains back then would throw hot coffee at their crew and draw a circle and chalk on the floor and tell a cadet, "That's where your feet go, don't move." and your mouth goes like this. And this guy was beloved, so much so that they would follow him from ship to ship as he got promoted. So half this crew had been on with him for years on a few ships. And 5 of these guys, including McSorley, were going to retire after this season. I got to Craig Elquist, who'd been on the ship earlier that year in 75 in January. And he said at the end of that season, it stops in January, you get 3 months off, then you get back on or you don't. And all 5 were debating coming back on or not for the next year. And they all talked themselves into doing it. But McSorley promised his wife, Nellie, this would be the last journey for sure. And this is going to be his last trip. This is the last trip of the season. And the last trip of the season was supposed to be the week before. And the reason they tacked on 1 more week was to get his bonus to pay for her medical care because she probably had cancer. She's in 24-hour care. So this trip was for her care. And that makes it all the more heartbreaking. But by all accounts, a beloved guy and a good guy, not greedy and not egotistical, but confident. And again, great in a storm. So that's his background.
So I wanna get into the night of the wreck, but first, 2 more people stories I'd like you to tell, since you told the story of taking the bonus for the medical care. The diamond ring story and the pregnant girlfriend story. I think that gives us some insight into this crew and what was going, like, these were human beings. So this is sure. You have your tissues, Ashley?
I wanted to cry from, I can't, darn it, man.
I told you we might cry.
It's pretty common on this show.
I've gotten choked up myself here. And
yep.
This one, I had to be clear, the pregnant girlfriend's not mine. When someone said, "Hey, tell the pregnant girlfriend story." Just knock on wood. There we go. Happily married. There.
Yeah. So tell us these stories. This is really interesting.
Sure. Eddie Bindon. Well, let's start with Eddie Bindon. We'll tell that story. He's a 47-year-old first assistant engineer, which means you're right below chief engineer. Done very well, very good at what he did. Patrick Devine from Toledo worked under him, and he's still around. He worked with him that summer, and as well as on another ship previously. So this guy was great. He knew his stuff, taught me, protected me from the older guys, which can be helpful. Just a real sweet guy, knew his stuff. Told his wife, Helen, she lived near Cleveland. They did. This is going to be my last year, and he's going to retire. The day before they leave, on November 8th, 1975, he gets a ride from Superior, Wisconsin, where the ship is loading, across to Duluth, where there's a jewelry store. It's right across the border. Buys her a beautiful 2-carat diamond ring for their 25th anniversary coming up. But instead of stuffing this in your duffel bag like you normally would, and she's going to be on the dock in Toledo in 3 days, greeting you, he gives it to a friend in Duluth and says, "Please mail this to my wife." And with a love note wrapped around the ring case. And of course, we know what happens. Ship goes down, and 3 or 4 days later, she receives in the mail a 22-carat diamond ring for the 25th anniversary and a love note. And she wore it the rest of her life and never remarried. So that's Eddie Binden. And then Bruce Hudson. Bruce Hudson was something of a badass, I would say. He was an Eagle Scout, but also had a motorcycle. He's an interesting contrast of qualities. He dropped out of Ohio State for a couple of years to make very good money as a deckhand on the Edmund Fitzgerald. He's making the equivalent today of about $180,000 per season for 9 months. That's serious money for anybody. And he salted it away very well, but his one weakness was his 1972 Dodge Challenger muscle car in Burgundy. It had a Columbia Transportation sticker in the passenger window. That's the C on the side, by the way. That's for Columbia, and they leased the ship. So he had that in there. That's how proud he was of the Fitz. And then in September, he finds out from a payphone at one of the sailor bars in Silver Bay, Minnesota, from Cindy Reynolds, his girlfriend in Toledo, waitress, about to go to school herself. She said, guess what, I'm pregnant. And he's got to think fast. And he says, don't worry about it. We'll move in together. We'll raise the child ourselves. We'll be okay. I got plenty of money. And she was very relieved about that. Then she tells him, go ahead and go on your cross-country muscle car trip with your buddy, Mark Thomas, a fellow deckhand from Cleveland. This was about a month-long trip they had planned all season, of course. And the car is waiting for them in Toledo. I mean, the second they're off the ship, they're going to be in this car, bombing across to Colorado to get some Coors beer, because back then that was exotic, I swear to God.
My dad used to hitchhike from St. Louis to Colorado to get Coors beer. Yeah.
Unbelievable now.
Yep.
It's Kool-Aid, basically. But back then it was a big deal. And even in one of the photos they have with Bruce Hudson and Mark Thomas in the book is flashing his Coors T-shirt. Then they're going to go to LA and come back. And then, of course, he's going to settle down. It's going to be the biggest year of his life. The road trip, probably getting married, having a kid. And, of course, we know what happens next. Obviously the ship goes down. Ruth Hudson in North Olmsted near Cleveland, that's the suburb. That's her only child, which is, we've got a 10-year-old. My wife assures me I've got an only child. Ain't no more. I just can't fathom that. And she fought for years to get the site declared an international grave site by the Canadian government. It's just barely in Canadian waters. And have the bell brought up 530 feet from the bottom of Lake Superior. That's no small trick either, of course. And her niece, Pam Wittig, one of my great sources and become a great friend, she said Aunt Ruth was 4'9", and she told you she was 5'5", and you believed her. She's that kind of spark plug. But I mean, here she lost her only child, and then she finds out 6 months later. Guess what? Cindy Reynolds, whom she knew, they knew each other. Cindy Reynolds calls her up and says, "Guess what? You're going to be a grandmother," and she was not expecting that. And Heather comes that spring, of course, and then Heather has 4 kids, and the oldest one looks just like Bruce Hudson. Austin does. And she said something like, Aunt Ruth, that I love all my 4 great-grandchildren equally, but I play favorites. And how can you not? So it's obviously heartbreaking, but it's amazing how the world works.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit, I'm going to get into the wreck after this, but tell us a little bit, we're talking about the crew, we're talking about these individuals, but the crew itself was kind of split into 2 age demographics. So give us an idea of the type of people that are working on this thing.
Adam, you got an A+ for your book report, pal, because now you know your stuff. You know how to condense this and pull out the most important things. That book is 388 pages long. You can get lost in a lot of things. Yeah. So well done. You're putting out the best stuff.
I used to be a lawyer, so I
went to Michigan Law School for 5 minutes. Literally, that's a record for dropping out, by the way. You don't get any credit for that, in case you're wondering.
I've studied in the law library, if that counts.
But yes, it had 2 groups. About 21, 22 of these guys out of the 29 were born in 19-teens, like McSorley and his buddies, 1920s, 1930s. They had fought in World War II, fought in the Korean War, many with great distinction, grown up in the Great Depression. So you had the older crowd, very patriotic, brush cuts, all that. Then you had 6 young bucks, between 20 and 22 years old. These guys often had been to college for a little bit or planned to go back to college. All that was new for these guys. These guys were often 8th grade dropouts and so on, who taught themselves very complicated jobs, passed all these hard tests, truly self-educated guys and very smart guys, but not, college educated. So, and these guys all went to the Maritime Academy in Traverse City, Michigan, and places like that to avoid Vietnam. So it's a very different set, and yet under McSorley, these guys got along famously well. He didn't even care about the long hair, so long as you kept it out of the damn machines, because then it's going to tear your head off.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
So as a safety concern is all, and these guys got along quite well, and all the guys said the same thing. He was utterly fair. If you did your job, that's all they cared about. Just do your job. And these guys loved the older guys, and the older guys treated them surprisingly well. So he had harmony in the ship in a way that very few ships did.
There is my favorite chapter in the book. There's no chapter numbers. Page 172. You're talking about how game show producers don't like having Midwesterners as contestants because they're not jumping up and down, they're not screaming and yelling. And you said there's no written like code for Great Lakes sailors, but if there was, it would be this: know your job, do your job, don't quit, and don't make excuses. Holy crap! Like, I didn't realize I was running a Great Lakes sailing ship at our tax strategy firm, but here we are. All right, so let's talk about that last trip. It's the last trip of the season. It's the biggest, most prestige. Well, not the biggest at that point, but when it launched, it was the biggest, prestigious, luxurious, beautiful ship, best crew on the Great Lakes. So tell us about that fateful last trip.
Sure. Well, your points. By the way, I love that you pulled that out. You're the first guy to pull that one out. That quote. Even though it was overtaken by the 1,000-footers, obviously much longer, that would take 62% more in cargo, better designed for the cargo loads. This ship, even then, was still the most famous ship on the Great Lakes. It's the one that all the tourists were waiting for. So size alone was not the issue. So there you go. But anyway, the last trip. Sunday, November 9th, 1975, was 70 degrees in Duluth, Minnesota, where it's so cold you don't go swimming in that lake any time of year. So this is very unusual, and you think, oh, it's great news. That's bad news. The longer winter takes to arrive, the angrier it shows up. My experts told me about that. So it's like water behind a dam. The more water you get behind that dam, the longer it takes, the worse that crash is going to be. And that's what happens here. And it's going to happen from two storms. One, the Alberta Clipper from obviously Western Canada goes across the plains, bringing cold, dry winds and serious winds at that. They're used to that one. That's pretty common in November. The one they were not used to and really didn't know much about, the forecasters could have, but they did a poor job here. It's called, how about this one? The Panhandle Hooker. Not making this up.
All right.
There you go, Ashley. Yes, no,
that's a new one for me. That's a new one for me.
Well, it was new for me. I found that in a conference in Duluth, and I told the guy, damn it, if I heard that one a year ago, that's in the book. It's called that because it loops around Oklahoma, the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. It loops around gathering moisture and then going north to Spear. Talking about a storm here, people, nothing else.
Yeah.
That'll be our next episode.
There you go, just so we're clear. But anyway, so these two things, hot and cold combining, dry and wet combining is not good. So, and they're going to collide right in front of Whitefish Bay. Whitefish Bay is like the drain of Lake Superior in the east. That's where you go down to go into the Sioux Locks. So that's home. That's safety. That's what you're trying to get to. That's why that lighthouse is the most coveted lighthouse in the Great Lakes out of 167. That's when you want to see to know you are now safe from Lake Superior. And these two storms set up shop like a catcher guarding home plate. And that's where you're headed. So that's going to be bad. So that's the start of it.
Man.
So they head out 70 degrees. They're out there in their T-shirts. Yeah. Heading out into the biggest, nastiest Great Lake that there is. And there's the Arthur Anderson is nearby, right? So tell us about that race across Lake Superior.
Sure. It's kind of funny because these guys are highly competitive captains, to say the least. And this is why. If I beat your ship, I have got Anderson around here too somewhere for your radio listeners. But anyway, if I beat you at La Parisienne Island in the Whitefish Bay, that's the checkpoint for the Sioux Locks. Sioux Locks can only fit one ship at a time. So you get in line. You get a number, truly. So La Parisienne going this direction, going southbound, that's the checkpoint. Whoever's there first calls into the lockmaster, and you get your number. So if I beat your ship by a minute to 30 seconds to La Parisienne Island, right, I go before you in the Sioux Locks. That takes an hour. It maybe takes longer if you got ships going the other way too. It can take 2 or 3 hours, all right, just by beating you by 30 seconds. And then once I've done that, guess what? When we unload in Zug Island, Detroit, or Toledo, all right, I'm going to get there first. It takes 14 hours to unload. And if there's no other spots available, I beat you by a minute. I just beat you by 15 hours minimum. So guess what? These guys are crazy about this stuff. They're highly competitive. And if you finish second too often, trust me, the company in Cleveland or Gary, Indiana, they know every time where you are. And you finish second too many times, you ain't gonna be a captain very long.
Yeah.
So you got to go. So these guys are by nature competitive, and yet they kind of put that aside at various points on this trip. Bernie Cooper is the captain of the Arthur Anderson, kind of a cousin ship, very similar. They go together along with the Wilfred Sykes, and I've been on 2 of these 3 ships, by the way, the 2 Ken last summer. They're both fantastic. They're getting old, but anyway, so they decided to take what's called the Northern Route. That's very rare for McSorley. He's a very aggressive captain normally. Normally you go as south as you can on the southern shore of Lake Superior to the Keweenaw Peninsula and then down to Whitefish Bay, trying to hug the coast basically. This time I'm going to go the northern route, and that's safer because it's 3 sides of a square basically. The first 2 sides can be protected by the Canadian shore and Isle Royale and places like that, which will protect you from the wind, and therefore the waves are not nearly as severe. So the first 2 legs are great. Comes with 3 catches, and this is where everyone knows I took the northern route, but no one else. I made a big deal out of this. I'm surprised others didn't. 3 things. 1, it's pay me now or pay me later. So, okay, the first 2 legs are great. That third leg's going to be hell because instead of going straight across and dealing with it the whole way, now you got 350 miles of fetch, all right, of waves coming your way, building up for 350 miles. They're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as they cross the lake, like a bathtub, splashing the drain, basically. So, and that's going to hit you broadside. So here you go, broadside. Broadside is like this. You don't want that, all right? Because then you start rocking back and forth. It's very unsafe. You can capsize that way. So that's bad. 2, it's 14 hours longer this way than this way. What does that mean? You just gave the panhandle hooker, all right, a 14-hour head start, all right, and you don't even know about it, all right, and that's going to get there first. So there's the second problem. Third problem is you don't know it nearly as well. I learned from the previous crew members that in the year and a half prior, they took the northern route not once. So he takes the southern route 50 times a year, and really 100 if you include round trips, right? And this is his, 32nd year as a captain. He's taken this route thousands of times. He knows it like the back of his hands. He knows every part of it. This other route he takes every few years. So he does not know it nearly as well. And why does that matter? On day 2, on Monday, November 10th, you're coming down the hard way, and now the winds are 30, 40, 50 miles per hour. The waves are 20, 30 feet high, getting pretty nasty. Well, guess what? Your long radar got knocked out by the storm. Your short radar got knocked out by the storm. The lighthouse at Whitefish Point, I mentioned, that light is out, the one you're trying to see, all right, and now it's dark and snow is going sideways in front of your pilot house. And even the radio beacon from that lighthouse that sends out a signal that allows you to track yourself where you are, that's out. You are now truly sailing blind. And why does that matter? Because as deep as that lake is, 1,300 feet deep, guess what? There's a little spit of land called Caribou Island in the northeast corner out of nowhere. It's like a volcano, almost a mini volcano. This thing is sticking right out there, and in front of that is 6 Fathom Shoal. A fathom is 6 feet. 6 fathoms is therefore 36 feet. And this thing, the ship, drafts 29 feet in the water on a good day, and this ain't a good day. You should be nowhere near this. And worse than that, 6 Fathom Shoal is poorly advertised. It's 11 feet deep in some places. All right, you're going to bottom out if you go over this. You should be nowhere near it. And Bernie Cooper of the Anderson, whose radar does work, and he's an hour behind the Fitzgerald at this point, he is convinced he saw on the radar it went right over 6 Fathom Shoal, which in McSorley's defense, you could probably barely see it anyway in those waves and the darkness and so on. So if they did, they almost certainly bottomed out, and that means you damage the hull. That means water's coming in, and now you've got what's called a list. A list is when you lean permanently to one side or the other. In this case, a starboard or right list. All right, what does that mean? That means you can't steer nearly as well as you might imagine. It means you're far more vulnerable to a big wave cracking down on you, and you're also more vulnerable to capsizing in those broadside waves. You're already halfway there, basically. So he is now limping like a 3-legged dog in the wild. It's going to be bad. And he calls Bernie Cooper at about 2 o'clock and about 5 o'clock and talking about his problems. And at first he mentioned the list last, and then he mentions the list first. So you have to assume the list is getting worse as water gets in. So that's how you get there, of course. And I kind of side with John Tanner, the former superintendent of the Great Lakes Maritime Academy. He said when a big ship goes down, it's rarely one thing. It's a series of problems that accrue over time. The worst storm of the century at 7 o'clock at night, the last communication with Bernie Cooper. They're in the worst, as one of my experts said. And he's done computer models, and you see this thing as you click along, how the nastiest part goes right in front of Whitefish Bay, right where the Edmund Fitzgerald is, and not the Arthur Anderson. They got their own problems, but it's not as bad as this. All right, up to 60-foot waves and 100-mile-per-hour winds. That is hurricane force. 60-foot wave, this thing's only got 11 feet out of the water, and you're getting a 60-foot wave on top of you. It's going to add up. And the last communication, as you know, Adam, when Bernie Cooper asked him at 7 o'clock, 7:10, how are you making out with your problems? And McSorley says, and I quote, "We are holding our own." And those are the last words we know of from the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Did it
tell us the tattoo story.
Well, first,
No,
did it
no.
break?
Well,
is that what
we'll get there.
ultimately?
I don't want to spoiler alert this,
I'm
Ashley.
gonna run out of time.
I want to hear the tattoo story.
So Heidi Wilhelm, her dad, was an oiler on the ship. He was trying to get his courage up to take the test during the off season to move up a rank because he had test issues. He was a smart guy, though. But anyway, she's the 6th of 7 kids in Mauquois, Wisconsin. They find out the company didn't call anybody, didn't answer any calls, didn't return any calls. So these people find out from Channel 10 in Duluth, Channel 11 in Toledo. And Ruth Hudson finds out from the radio on Tuesday morning when she's driving to work at the Bonnie Bell Cosmetic Factory in Cleveland. This is horrible. So the company that leased it, not Northwestern Mutual, but the company that leased it, I can't defend them. But anyway, so they find out from the next door neighbor, Heidi does, and you're the 6th of 7 kids. Your mom is a full-time mom, obviously, with that many kids at home, of course, and you lost a paycheck. And the company paid as little as they could, usually about a year's salary, which that gets you a year. That's all, and you got these kids. But they sucked it up. They bonded together. They got to the state schools or the military. They raised families or some combination. And the crew was very close, as I said. The families did not know each other at all. They didn't know the names in most cases, not of all the guys. They didn't have any addresses, any phone numbers. But in the process of getting the shipwreck site declared a national grave site, international grave site, and bringing the bell up, it's a lot of meetings and a lot of phone calls, a lot of letters. They became incredibly close. And just a few years ago, I was at Whitefish Point with these families. And Heidi, now in her 60s, like all of them pretty much, she said the people at this table are not like family for us. They are family. And she grabs their arms and they grab back and they're all getting choked up. I said, who else could know what I feel? Who else could know what I've been through? And then she says, and my daughter Sarah's got a tattoo. And Sarah was born on November 10th, 1998, the 23rd anniversary of her grandfather's sinking, a grandfather she would never meet, naturally. And then on her 21st birthday, on November 10th, 2019, she got a tattoo. And Heidi says to Sarah, I said, show John your tattoo. She pulls up the sleeve on her gray hoodie, and on her arm, in carefully tattooed letters, it says, "We are holding our own."
Oh.
And
these families are. They've toughed it out.
Okay. I don't want John on. I got to change gears. I'm going to lose it. I don't want John on this show to share his opinion of what happened with the ship, because you have to read the book, because I've heard clearly a couple interviews that he's done, and there is information in the book that he has not mentioned in any of these interviews, including the 120 feet of cable. Mind-blowing. I don't want to get into that. I want to switch gears a little bit, because we have a moment here with a really successful leader, a really successful journalist, a really successful author, and I want to talk a little bit about this. Okay. I told him there was going to be some curveballs, and John and his manager got a little nervous when I mentioned that. All right, first thing. The book was published October 7th of this year, is that right?
Correct.
And how long before that was it like ready to hit print, that it was ready to go?
You got to turn it in about 4 or 5 months, probably maybe 5 months before. So the scary part when you go on a book tour is the people asking questions read it today. Yep. And I haven't read it in 6 months.
Yep.
There's a lot in there. And by the way,
Guilty.
We weren't nervous about the curveballs. You can give me whatever you want.
Well,
all we were nervous about is our one rule is we don't joke about it.
Yeah.
So we can joke about a lot of things about it. We can't joke about the thing itself. People want to make jokes about the song sometimes and things like this. And like,
I know the family. We didn't even get into the song. We're getting into the song. But here's what I really want to know. Or what I want you to tell people. When that book is basically done 4, 5, 6 months in advance, your job's not done. You just spent 3 or 4 years writing this thing and then the fun starts. So tell us a little bit about the process of what you've been doing since shortly before October 7th through today.
Oh, there you go. There's another book over there called The Great Halifax Explosion. Came out with HarperCollins in 2017. Still selling very well. In fact, it's gotten a big boost from this book because people are often buying them together. It's the only other book I've written that's like this in terms of a disaster, not sports, and so on. That allowed me to write this book, actually. But when I finished that book with Peter Hubbard, a great editor, now higher up at HarperCollins, he did American Sniper, which became a big movie, of course, and sold 5 million copies, I think. He said, when I finished that book, congratulations, you've written a great book. Now the hard part, we got to sell it. So if people don't realize, and I think a lot of authors don't realize till they're into it, that the book, that's half the battle. Then it's getting excerpts out, getting interviews like this, setting up book tours, getting audiences and so on. So excerpts, articles, reviews, radio, TV, book tour stuff. I've already done about 25 stops in 10 states in 6 weeks from Miami to Montana. And for the most part, I really like this. Actually, it's fun to. I spent 3-4 years staring at a screen. That's lonely work, and this is far more engaging, as you might imagine. Especially if the book, you feel good about the book and people like it. That's of course a whole lot better. But that's the whole process. And I'll finish December 15th in Cleveland at the Great Lakes Brewing Company.
We're going. We're
Absolutely,
going.
because I got so much catching up to do.
Oh, we have Edmund Fitzgerald to drink too. They got the beer.
They got the beer.
I foresee a movie, by the way.
Go ahead, John.
Absolutely,
Go ahead.
There's got to
Chew it
be
up.
a movie because you can't write that and then this story, hearing this, and there's not a movie.
Go ahead.
I've got a Zoom tomorrow with one of the Hollywood producers.
I knew it! I'm so excited! I knew it!
Well, trust me, this is Hollywood.
Oh, that's going to be an awesome
No, this is a good
movie.
line.
You guys are all nice Midwesterners, St. Louis. Joel, where are you from?
Erie, yeah.
Erie. Ashley, where are you from?
Erie.
Erie, okay. You're all nice. I'm counting that Midwest.
Yep.
All right, so if we say, let's do lunch, food follows. We're going to eat. All right, and in Hollywood, that's a mere punctuation. That's how you say goodbye. All right, and then the hayseed me calls you up a month later. Hey, I'm back in town. Let's do lunch. Oh, this is awkward. You thought I meant that. No, there's no lunch. So in Hollywood, a friend of mine, Jim Bernstein, gave me great advice. When they say they liked it, they hated it. When they say they loved it, they liked it. When they actually paid you, they loved it. There's not an ounce of love in Hollywood until the check clears. Don't believe a word. But so far, the buzz is good, and we're getting smart people interested. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And Let Them Lead is you're working on a screenplay for as well, right?
Correct. On the third draft there, people at Disney Plus seem interested. So we'll see what happens there. That's
awesome.
about me coaching my high school hockey team. It's a first-person story. That's the Ted Lasso one, but it's real.
Yeah.
Yes, worst player in school history. Take over the worst team in America. This should work. And it did. It did because I stole from Red Berenson and Herb Brooks and Bo Schembechler. It works.
All right. Another curveball question. This thing's up on Amazon, really well rated. How do you respond, internally or externally, to 1-star reviews that say, you don't know what you're talking about, you did a bad job with this book? How do you deal with that?
First of all, it's inevitable. And we're getting a 4.8 on Amazon, which is, I mean, even for colossal blockbusters, 4.4 is about the average. So I cannot complain. The reader's been very, very good to me. But you're going to get a few guys throw you a 1-star. I'd give 0 if I could. Okay. Oh, yeah, they always say that when they give 1 star because they want to go lower.
Yeah.
What I really have someone say, man, this was great. 1 star. It's like, no, that's not how the star system works. Yeah. So you get those. But how do I respond to those? My wife sits over there, or I call a friend of mine, and I tell them exactly what I want to say to that. You have no idea what the hell you're talking about. There are 5 things wrong in your answer. And also, you misspelled amateur.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. From your mom's basement, probably.
Exactly right. So that's a response. But you don't want to engage these guys because what they want is oxygen. They want, as one of my advisors and editor told me years ago, don't give that jackass your platform. So now, there are honest ones where people say, I thought the lead up was too long. I don't need that much history and so on. Okay, fair enough. That's a matter of taste.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But also the vast majority will say, I'm glad I learned more than just about the ship. I learned about Great Lakes shipping.
Absolutely.
I got to know the people. I cared about them. My rule is you have to care about the people before the disaster comes.
Yep.
I can't stop the wild up and down on the seas to tell you this guy was a barber at home and he trimmed all the guy's hair on the deck and this and that. it's not the time for that. You have to care about them beforehand, and it's going to be less dramatic than the actual accident, obviously. But I think that's the price you got to pay to get there.
All right, so The Gales of November by John U. Bacon, of course, available on Amazon, and if you buy it, leave the 5-star review that it deserves. Or better yet,
at least know how it works. Yeah. 5 stars good.
5 stars good. Or go to your local independent bookstore and pick up a copy of this. I got mine at Warner Books recently.
Or ask your boss who's obsessed with it to get you a copy.
I've gifted copies.
I need one.
I've gifted copies, and I will get more, and we'll go watch the movie. All right, Joel, how are we doing on time? All right, John, in 1 minute, can you tell us the Gordon Lightfoot story with the song?
1 minute, yes. Gordon Lightfoot was a serious sailor. He knew what he's talking about. He's working on a song that night, the night it goes down, an old Irish sea shanty he first heard when he's 3.5 years old. The stories come in from Newsweek and the Associated Press. He studies them very carefully. That song is 97% accurate. And he finally gets to the studio where they have 5 days to record 11 songs for his next album. This song is not one of them. So after 3.5 days, they finish early, and they're packing up to go. And the producer says through the PA and from his booth, he says, "Why don't you try that song you've been screwing around with?" He goes, "It's not ready." And he's very, very perfectionist, and he's very self-conscious about the song also, as you might imagine. And he says, "Look, man, we're charging for 5 days, whether you play it or not. Might as well play it." Okay, gets talked into it. As you said earlier, Barry Keane, the drummer, who's still alive, God bless him, still playing. He says, "What do you want me to do?" He's never heard the song. He says, "I'll give you a nod when I want you to come in." At 1:30, Barry Keane thinks you've forgotten all about me. The song's about to end. Nope, he nods at him at 1:34 exactly, as Adam pointed out earlier. Points for that. And he comes in with that great drum fill. It sounds like The Storm. He made it up on the spot. It's great. They finished the song 6 minutes, 28 seconds. That is 3 times longer than a normal song at that time. So that wasn't half bad. Let's try it again. They tried it again a few more times. They tried it again the next day. Never as good. Luckily, the first time they did it, the producer was actually recording. And the song you hear on the radio is not just the first take. It's the first time the band ever played the song. Wow. And Barry Keane has been on literally 500 albums. And he said, "I've had first takes, I can count them on 2 hands in my entire career. First time he ever played it, never, ever, 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 ever." And I asked him why. He said, "This is not a song you think your way through. It's a song, it's a song you have to feel." We felt it the strongest the first time, and the listener hears that too. They never thought it was going to be a hit. It was not. They went on Saturday Night Live. They went on the Midnight Special. They never played it. It just crawls its way up there. By the end of the year, it's number 2 on the charts behind Rod Stewart.
And number 1 in Canada, and now Adam Williams' go-to karaoke song.
Yep.
All right, John, this has been outstanding. Yeah. It went better than I expected, but it was really great to have you on the show.
Expect?
Everybody, I expected I was going to choke. I was so nervous. So The Gales of November, pick it up at your local bookstore.
Or something like that.
You were great. All right, John, we really appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody. I believe in you.
You were great. Thank you. JohnUBacon.com.